Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Judicial Proceedings Committee. Today is Friday, March 20th, 2026. We're on voting list number 12, and we're going to start off with Senator Henson's bill, Senate Bill 937.
And we adopted the amendment yesterday, or yes, okay. So the amendment that's in the voting packet is different, so should I?
All right, let me ask the sponsor then. So we adopted an amendment. Do you want to remove that amendment and then add the one that's in this packet, or do you want to layer on top of the amendment that we adopted
It depends
yesterday?
on how he drafted it.
So there's a few substantive changes. For the most part, it's the same, but I can describe what's different than what's in the new amendment.
So it's all the same except for a couple small changes? Okay. So maybe we...
Okay.
All right, so then... All right, is there a motion to reconsider the vote? All right. Is everyone okay? All right. All right, so what's the amendment number?
So the amendment number is 193312. It's separate from your packet. It was just handed out.
I think it's this, yeah.
Yes.
Right, okay. Yeah, it's on comment.
All right, let's adopt the amendment so we can work off of this. Is everyone okay? All right, amendments are moved, seconded. All right. All right.
Okay, so the amendments, if you follow along on page 1 of the reprint, sorry, let's go to page 3 of the reprint. That's substantial. That's the exact same language that was previously adopted. That applies the bill's applicability to just landlords that manage or owns 4 or more residential units. And then if you go next to page number 5, this deals with, before extending a conditional offer, the types of information that a landlord can consider. And so we altered the number 1 of A to I1. And what it read before was for a potential tenancy in federally assisted housing, manufacturing or producing methamphetamine on the premises of federally assisted housing. And then language that was added is distributing, dispensing, or producing methamphetamine. I think substantively it's the same thing, but that's just a reference to the Fair Housing Act, which provides that persons convicted of methamphetamine can be banned from receiving federal assistance. And then at the bottom of page 5 of the reprint, that's the same from the previously adopted amendment, that a landlord can refuse to a prospective tenant who has ever been subject to a registration requirement under a state or federal sex offender registration program. And going to page 6, this deals with after the extension of a conditional offer to a specific tenant or to a prospective tenant, a landlord can reject tenants previously convicted within 5 years of a felony conviction. That was previously a 3-year look-back window. And they can reject for any convictions listed in 8-2A04. That, again, should be 82A05. And that is unchanged from the previously adopted amendment. And moving on to page 7. C2, if a landlord withdraws a conditional offer, the landlord shall provide the prospective tenant with written notice of the withdrawal that includes, and then 2, a statement that the prospective tenant may request a reassessment of the withdrawal by providing written evidence written evidence signed under the penalties of perjury. That previously just said by providing evidence, and so that's different from the previously adopted amendment. Page 8 is the same, page 9 is the same, and then going to page 10, again, we replaced the Attorney General with the Office of Landlord-Tenant Affairs for the data keeping responsibilities. And then going to line 15, a person who violates this subtitle is subject to a civil penalty not exceeding $500 for each violation. And we strict the portion of the bill that dealt with reference to the commercial law article, Consumer Protection Act, which has the higher civil penalties, and we just left the penalty at $500. And then finally, at the bottom of the page, there was some confusion at the hearing, but the amendment as drafted now reads that this act shall preempt and supersede any local law or ordinance comparable in subject matter to this act, except to the extent that the local law or ordinance provides broader applicability or more protections for tenant than this act. And that's different than that language was not included in the previous amendment or in the bill as it originally came in.
Thank you. Okay, I know that on the preemption piece, we did check with MACO, and they were not in alignment with it as it was proposed by the opponents to have a total preemption for local authorities. There are several local jurisdictions, I believe Baltimore City and Prince George's, that have, and there are some advocates here who could help us with particularity if we wanted to know the specific jurisdictions that have a broader list of offenses that are included. And so we wouldn't want to, I think they carefully crafted it based on the populations of their jurisdictions. We would want to run offensive to what the needs of the housing that they know are in their jurisdictions. So that was the attempt there, is to make sure that any preemption, this was the floor and not the ceiling with the legislation. But the piece where the Consumer Protection Act is stricken from it, the goal of the amendment is to make sure that the penalties are capped at $500, because we certainly were compassionate with the fact that we don't want landlords exposed to civil penalties up to $25,000. But the Consumer Protection Act is an appropriate vehicle to have those things litigated. So Shamari, are we able to make sure that the Consumer Protection Act can be used, but that we can just cap any sort of penalties that would be assessed against a landlord in the Consumer Protection Act?
We can do that. I'm trying to see if there's a catch-all provision that would subject landlords to enforcement within the Consumer Protection Act already under current law.
Okay.
I can have that before the floor, but I haven't been able to verify just yet.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I should also note that I just got a note from DLS that generally preemption provisions are placed into codified language. So the substance would remain the same, but it would go into the bill and not into the uncodified language. The committee should know that.
Is that something that would be fought in court?
That's generally presumed.
So I'd be more comfortable, I mean, for a number of reasons, like just if it was, how many jurisdictions have more broad protections than what's offered in the bill?
I'm not sure which ones specifically, but.
Public Justice Center. So to be clear, this, I believe the preemption language actually would create the floor, which would negate the actual two jurisdictions that have this bill. So Montgomery County and Prince George's County have these kind of bills. And so what this bill would do is preempt those bills, but it wouldn't stop a locality from doing something more if they wanted to in the future. So if this bill were to be passed, this bill will be the floor. This will be the state bill provision for all the jurisdictions. But say if Baltimore City wants to do something based on their population, Montgomery County wants to do something based on their population, Harford County, they're not precluded from doing more beyond that.
Thank you. I'm sorry, this would preempt Montgomery County?
Yes, Montgomery County actually has a provision that has a reverse kind of fair chance bill, which is that their bill allows you to look at a whole assortment of convictions, except you're precluded from looking at what essentially is convictions of poverty. But our stance is that based on the HUD guidance that was rescinded, in addition to this bill, that unfortunately Montgomery County bill doesn't nearly go far enough in the way that we need to make sure that individuals have the housing that they need based on the convictions, because it's inverse. Whereas Prince George's County is look back period only for all convictions.
Got it. Thank you.
You're identifying a problem with having lack of uniformity, which is that if you operate in multiple jurisdictions, then you're gonna have to figure something out over here, and then you're gonna have to go here and figure out what that is. So like, I'm just saying it, not to be offensive to what the locals have done already, but I think it would be more sound to either preempt everything, saying, like, just preempt, like, this is the law, period. Or grandfather in jurisdictions that already have something similar to this, and then say prospectively, this is it. Because it's just, even for operations, it's like you're identifying that it's just like, it's a little here, a little there, and like, if you're running a business, like, what are you gonna do?
I understand, and I would leave it to the body to decide on that. I think just for the purposes of making sure that, MACO and other jurisdictions don't come in and say, hey, we don't want the localities to be preempted to do what they want to do. If we want to keep Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and then say the rest are capped, I think we would be open to that. And if there is preemption, just saying this is the state and then nothing can go forward, we just want to make sure that localities might be able to do something. So I know, like in Baltimore City, there's a whole new public local law that has some criminal penalties in there. They might want to address that at some point, but just want to make sure that there's flexibility within the system.
Understanding the structure of the local laws, then I think having a uniform statewide law makes a lot of sense. So, yes. Yeah. That's right.
So, okay, so it'll be placed in statute, and the will of the body is that there just be the uniform standard across the state, and local jurisdictions cannot pass new local laws that grant or deny further protections.
That's right.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a couple of questions. First of all, when we did the my bill earlier on air conditioning, we had the cutoff between the number of units that wouldn't be covered and the number of units that would be covered at 10. This is at 4. Is there a logical reason why we should differentiate between the two?
This is consistent with the fair housing laws when we are differentiating small landlords from large landlords. The 4 or 5 range is the cutoff in state law and federal law as well. It's some
4 or
states,
fewer, so.
4
above
or
5.
more.
I just wanted to be consistent, but I thought, and again, I'm not an expert, I'm a little landlord, you're a little landlord, you might know more than I do. I thought we always were trying when we thought between big and little, or institutional, which I think is really where the problems are. We don't want to lose these mom and pops. I always thought we were in that more than 4, less than 6 range, or 6 or less. So I am surprised, and I must be losing my mind, that I could have sworn we talked about 5 or less, or under 6, or 6 or less. Or maybe it's even in other areas. Am I wrong? Maybe it's not in landlord-tenant, but I feel like it oftentimes is. I thought it was in landlord-tenant. Anyway, I was just thinking how hard it would be for anybody, but someone like me maybe, to know that in one instance, it would be the 4 units, and something else would trigger a different responsibility. And I just read an article in the New York Times about how mom and pop landlords in New York have plummeted to an incredibly limited amount, and they're probably going to go out of business because all these laws that are directed or can be handled better by bigger institutional actors, and the loss is going to be pretty great. I don't want to see us replicate that in Maryland. I want us to be sensitive to those small mom and pops that I think care about their tenants oftentimes more, not always, but often. We know them more, we have a lot more sympathy and empathy, and we're closer to them. So anyway, any help there would be appreciated.
Senator, I mean, you're saying basically 5 units or more.
What, I thought we had I thought we had laws already, that's all I'm saying.
I don't either.
Well, 4 does seem like I've never heard 4, in Maryland,
So going back to 8-2A-2, it'll read, this subtitle applies only to a landlord that manages 5 or more residential rental units in the state.
And does that make us somewhat consistent? I swear people
Under the
testify.
federal fair housing.
Yes, federal
Yes.
fair. All right. Good? Senator Henson?
That's good, thank you.
Second question, and this is really the sponsor. My guess is that these landlords, when they do these checks, they employ a commercial service. And they give the prospective tenant's name to the commercial service, and they get a full report. And my guess is they don't do it twice. We're under this bill, they won't do it twice. They will get one full report. So is the intent of this bill that they have to cherry pick what they can take a look at, and that they have the report, so they have all the information in front of them, but they have to cherry pick what parts of the information they can use to make a decision to extend a conditional offer. And then once they've extended the conditional offer, they can go back and use other information in the report in deciding whether to make a final offer. Is that the theory of the bill?
Yes and no. The initial slate of offenses, they could deny housing before running the background check or doing the initial. They can ask those questions up front. So it gives the tenant the certainty to know what sort of offenses could screen them out, and it gives the landlord the certainty on that end as well. And so then they would go in and then do the background check and do the conditional offer, and then hopefully do the background check after they've extended the conditional offer. But to your question of what if you use one unified service where you're getting your credit screening and your background check from the same vendor and it comes in one unified report, then we would just have to rely on our landlords to still comply with the law and to use the credit screening portion at the appropriate time and then the background check portion at the appropriate time and still follow the procedure.
Okay. Last question. It's about other states. So when they get these reports back, my guess is the reports would cover any convictions, for example, or any sex offender lists for that particular person wherever, not just in Maryland. This is my surmise. I don't know. But if I'm a landlord and I find that this person was convicted in Pennsylvania of some sex offense, which got the offender on the sex offender list in Pennsylvania, that would be relevant to me, and I would not want to lease an apartment to that person. Is this bill going to stop, as written, as amended, going to stop the landlord from paying attention to that sort of information coming from other states?
One, that would be a very sophisticated report. What you're talking about sounds much more like a fingerprinted criminal background check than it does like a commercially available report. I don't know that landlords have access to interstate commercial fingerprinted background check reports.
Well, in this day of computers and the clouds and AI and all the rest, I suspect these reports are going to get more sophisticated quickly. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that future reports, for a little extra money, the landlord can get national report, not just a Maryland-specific report. Is it the intent of this bill that if the landlord discovers someone's on the sex offender list from southern Pennsylvania, that the landlord would nonetheless have to lease to that person and could not pay attention to the fact that that person's on the sex offender list?
That is not the intent.
Would that be the effect of the bill?
It does say the federal registry, so if they've ever been required to register federally, then they would not be required to extend the offer of housing to them conditionally or at the outset. I did pass my copy off to the advocate, so I'll look at it quickly to answer your question specifically with regard to another state's registry. What it says is that if they have ever been subject to a registry requirement under a state or federal sex offender registration program. So a state would include this state, Pennsylvania, or any state. It does say a state.
Okay, I was really looking actually at page 6 of the reprint, which talks about the things that the landlord can pay attention to in extending the final offer. And it says any felony conviction, but then it's under Maryland's criminal law article. And then under subpart 2, any convictions listed in section 8-2A-04 of this subtitle. So those two sections would not, it appears to me, include convictions in other states. Suppose someone had been convicted of murder in Pennsylvania. Would the landlord be permitted to take a look at that fact and pay attention to that in deciding to whether to extend a final offer to someone to rent to them?
I think that we have, and we understand that convictions are different state to state, and that what we've done is we've made a policy decision that things are felonies in states outside of Maryland that are not felonies here. Raised the example yesterday, for instance, at a certain period of gestation, it is a felony to complete an abortion in the state of Texas. So we don't want to open our landlords up to having to look at the laws of other states and screen out what is a felony conviction in another state, because we express what our values are in our criminal code here in the state of Maryland. So we're not going to turn that over and deny people housing based on laws of other states.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to get involved in abortion. We could certainly provide that to exclude that. But most felonies fall into the more garden variety kind, murders, burglaries, rapes, et cetera. And if I were a landlord, it certainly would be relevant to me as to whether, and if I'm in Montgomery County, it'd be relevant to me that the person who wants to rent from me was convicted right across the river in Virginia of multiple murders. But as I read the bill, the landlord would not be able to pay attention to that when deciding to extend an offer to the tenant.
So the chair has proposed some language, and I want to ask you, Senator, your perspective on it too.
Sure.
What I don't want to do is impose a duty on any of these landlords to do a 50-state survey of people's
I'm not talking about
background.
duty, I'm talking about discretion.
I understand, but I don't want to in any way, by referencing the felonies or laws of other states, to even imply under the law that we are expecting, particularly our small landlords, to do a comprehensive, international, nationwide survey of people's backgrounds.
Totally agree with you.
But if we are to include some language, what the chair has proposed is including some additional catch-all language to say, or in another state. So in that section that you're referencing on page 6 of the reprint, to say, or in another state, or a federal military court of a crime that, if committed in this state, would constitute a violation of this section. So basically saying if it were a felony in this state.
That
Now,
sounds
what that
great.
does,
If you propose that amendment, I'll second it.
what it does, though, is it requires our landlords to have the same level of expertise that you have on what's a felony in Maryland and to remain current on that expertise. So I don't want to put an undue burden on our small landlords that they have to now understand what's a felony and what's not. And they have to keep current with the General Assembly every session to know what's been deemed a felony, what's been deemed a misdemeanor, and they have to get that right with a degree of certainty and or have a penalty if they don't. So I hear what you're saying, but once we start judging the laws of other states and we loop that into this statute and we put that burden on them, I don't want to open that door unless what you're saying is that's going to have more of a benefit than a burden.
I hear you. My guess is that the Multifamily Housing Association, if this bill's passed, will quickly come up with a list that enumerates all the crimes that are described in the bill, and will provide that to its members so they have a handy-dandy crib sheet sitting right in front of them when people come in.
Mark, you add like something that, like a good faith, something that doesn't require them or place a burden on them, but as long as they make an effort, or that they, obviously, they can do this broader search, but that if they've made a good faith effort, there's no penalty for, like, it could be cumbersome to keep up with the criminal law article every session. So I'm very sensitive to what the senator is saying. Is there anything that you could
So
craft?
if So would this apply before the conditional offer or after the conditional offer?
Narrow section that's any felony after the conditional offer,
Okay.
that for that exclusion, that it would also be allowed for a felony that's a felony of another state, only if that felony would be a felony in Maryland at the time.
Okay.
But again, I think that's left out intentionally because for the small landlords, that's quite a burden to thread that needle. You almost need a legal advisor to then figure out, after you've done this comprehensive background check, now is this a felony in Maryland? And we don't want them to confuse once they see felony to then start using the felonies of other states against people here in Maryland for things we would never make a felony. I would never want that to happen.
I think there's like, okay.
So how does this, in the overall, it sounds like we're exposing, I'm going to say small landlords, to more lawsuits. Like, how does that?
That's what we're talking about, like, once you have some sort of offer, it's not incumbent upon them, that they can do it, it's not just.
And that's within the state of Maryland as well, not just looking out?
It's in the state of Maryland, but the ability to look out, but making it that it's not too cumbersome of a process, but not that if they've made some sort of an effort to do it, it's not like they have to do the whole deep dive search, and if they don't check all of these boxes and check every database, that they're going to be exposed to any liability. That's what we're trying to figure out to make sure that they're protected from that liability if we put this language in.
Okay. So we have a tenant there, and another one's going to move in, and we see this on their record, but we go ahead and we allow them to rent. Something bad goes wrong, or something goes wrong. What does it expose now to the landlord? How can it not limit any of their exposure? Yeah. Yeah.
They can't consider that, then they wouldn't have any liability under state law.
If we pass the bill, then they can't consider certain offenses.
Okay.
I do want to just raise, Mr. Chair, if thank you, Senator McKay, for raising that point too, that if the state law says they can't consider certain offenses, then that does provide a certain measure of protection for the landlord, because then the decision's not arbitrary, so then they don't have liability there. And then if there were some sort of broader liability to keep their tenants safe, then they have not run afoul of that, because this is the state law that says what you cannot exclude for. So it wasn't a voluntary decision. But also, when we look at trying to loop in the laws of other states and trying to figure out how we keep landlords insulated there, I just want to make sure we are putting on the record that this was brought to us by the opposition to the bill. We were prepared to move forward on the bill without looping in all the laws of other states and requiring landlords to do the mental exercise of what's a felony in another state and how does that compare to felonies in the state of Maryland. So adding that burden onto landlords is something that was brought to us, and I'll say, by the larger landlords. I don't know that we had the voice of the mom and pop landlord that has, more than 5 properties that would be trying to figure that out. I'm happy to pass the bill without peering into the laws of other states and comparing that to the state of Maryland. But if it's the will of the committee to try to figure that out, then that's my best effort to try to figure that out. I appreciate it.
All right, then you have language to make sure that they're protected from any sort of liability if they've made a good faith effort to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can get that.
Okay.
I should probably get it drafted.
If it has to be a floor amendment, we can do that. I mean, but I think, yeah, I don't want to slow the bill down, so.
Okay. I'll do a floor amendment.
Okay. Yeah.
So I just,
Now the bills before you as amended. Further discussion, motion? So the motion to move the bill as amended has been seconded. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative? Do we need a roll call? All right, sweet. Senate Bill 937 with the amendments passes unanimously. All right, we're now going to move on to Senate Bill 811.
Senate Bill 811 requires a developer, builder, broker, or real estate agent within 30 days after the sale of a new home in the state to enter the final sale price of the new home into a multiple listing service or similarly accessible database. Multiple listing services means a database used by real estate professionals to facilitate the sale of real property, including use in the preparation of market evaluations and appraisals. There are no amendments.
Motion for favorable, it's been seconded. Senator West has a question.
I remember when the bill hearing occurred, I asked a number of questions of the sponsor, and mostly relating to the fact that I went online during the bill hearing and I looked up Zillow in my neighborhood and I found all sorts of homes. I found their sale prices. So anybody who wants it can get it online free. My understanding is there's only one service in Maryland that would take this information from someone who sold their home, and for the person to give that information to the service, it's a private service, they'd have to subscribe. So we are basically requiring homeowners to subscribe to a private service and pay money to be a member of this private service to enter their home sale information. I guess it's great business for the home service. It's called the multiple listing service. It's been around for many decades, but it's private. My grandmother used to be in the real estate business, and I can remember as a child going over to her office in her house and finding piles of cards from the multiple listing service, but real estate agents had to have that information. An individual who sells his house doesn't have to have it. I've never heard of us requiring private citizens to pay money to a private company to join a private company, especially when the information is available free of charge on the internet just by dialing up Zillow, which you can do in seconds. So would someone care to explain to me why we need, number one, why we need this bill, and number two, any other situation in which we're requiring Maryland citizens to subscribe to a privately owned service and pay money to a privately owned service in order to sell their house?
Mr. Chairman, I too love Zillow. It has a wealth of information. But if you are looking at new home sales and let's say you're using Zillow and you're looking for new home sales, what you'll often see is they will have the plot of land and it will show you the plot of land, but it won't show you the new home sales because Zillow taps into the multiple listing service, and multiple listing service, when they're not input in there, that information is not translated to Zillow. So it wouldn't be available on a public market for the public to search or for anyone to see. The issue that was brought out in the bill hearing is that when you don't have the new home sales price, you can't use them as comps when people are trying to sell their home. I think your broader issue of what you're describing as the individual homeowner being required to then upload or to be required to subscribe to this service is not a part of the bill. The bill says that it would be for developers, builders, brokers, or real estate agents. So these are already industry professionals that would be familiar with this software and this service and would use it in their professional capacity. It would require them and them only to be able to upload the sales price. When you said, please explain to us why this would be needed, This solves a broader challenge, and it's one key feature of solving the broader challenge. This bill was the work product of a work group that's been working for 3 years on trying to solve the appraisal bias. And in one of those ways, what they've realized is that when new homes are built and you're in a community where you've historically had redlining happening and then you have new development surrounding your community, that sometimes that new development gets the benefit of the proper property values, but the historically redlined communities that are adjacent to those new home developments don't get the similar benefit of seeing their property values increase. So if you have the new home sales input into the system, you can use them as comps if you then want to sell your home and you're in an area that was historically redlined to have artificially depressed values for your homes. So it would do a great deal to help in lifting those values when you can see the new home sale values around them. And this was, again, the result of some really thoughtful work product from a group that has met for 3 years and come to us with a set of recommendations, this being just one.
I'm fascinated by that, and I just want you to explain it a little more. I was thinking that if you had a very old neighborhood and a brand-new development, I'm not an expert in this, but I think there are some limits to comps, because I think you have to say if this is a 80-year-old home and it's a brand-new one. But did you all, whoever worked on this, were we able to look elsewhere in the country with this example, like new communities around, and let's give them older, not 10 years, but consider, and then an appraiser under whatever guidelines they have can, even if there's quite a difference in the house, but not by size, let's say, or bedrooms or bathrooms, you know, that kind of thing. So you could, that would be an appropriate thing for an appraiser to, or that information, oh, I see. If the information's available, the appraiser then still has to choose whether to use it, right? Although if they're not using it and that ends up looking like a trend or something that's could, you know, involve bias or even unintentional bias. But what you're saying is the more out there, you're just lowering the risk that potential, not mandate, potential opportunity to elevate an existing community is more readily obtainable. Is that sort of it? Okay, and then you've seen this work, somebody has looked around, and this is, I know it's all very new, but somewhere we've looked and there has been, and I'd love for you to tell me later, you know, just give me a reference so I can read about it, but it has worked or is beginning to work elsewhere, you all saw? Do you remember that?
If this has worked elsewhere, I don't have data or information on,
Okay.
but this was a recommendation of the work group, which
Right.
did include professionals from the industry. But
So
I can
you all-
get back to you on if they
Yeah.
have tested this with results. I don't know that.
Well, anything you can tell me, like if you all learn from professionals, look, if you want to help, if you want us to help you or help,
Yes.
here's something that would be helpful. I'm just very interested in that.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
And the other thing that I want to point out to Senator West, because as you're talking about the fee that you have to pay to the multiple listserv, again, it also says similarly accessible database. So MLS doesn't have to be used under this legislation.
I hear that. It would be interesting information if there were a second database, but my information is that there's only one, and it's a private subscription service. While Senator James was talking, I pulled up Zillow, and I looked at the parts of the city where we're being referenced, which are more difficult with older homes. On my screen, it is a sea of red. I'm looking at West Baltimore here. You can hardly see anything other than red because of all the reports of sales in West Baltimore. I know when my grandmother was a member of Multiple Listing, and I'm sure it hasn't changed, in order to be a member, you have to promise them that you will send them this information. In other words, it's a mutual, you get the information from them of all the houses that are listed or have been recently sold, and you in turn provide back to them the houses that you have sold. So that's the way the system works. But again, it's a private enterprise. So I have to vote against this. I just can't, I don't think we should get in the business of requiring people to join private enterprises at whatever cost the private enterprise charges for membership as a condition of doing business here in Maryland.
All right, I just got one more question. Actually, Senator West, just to clarify, there's Zillow, there's Redfin, there's Realtor.com, there's Trulia, there's Home.com, there's Apartment Consult, there's Zumper. There'll be so many more. But so my question is this: with the proliferation of these kinds of platforms, and I'm actually not sure the difference between them and multiple listing, but does the bill just want to limit, I was trying to think about why we wouldn't say to try and get, available to all of these, but I guess you're saying the multiple listing, I don't understand this, is like a place that then Zillow and Redfin and Trulia, among other things, would then go to also, right? The multiple listing is what exactly? And because I have a little bit of a problem, there's only one. And the reason I have a problem is that without the competition, the mandate then allows them to price this with guaranteed customers. And so I don't want to, do an unfair thing. I'm not saying they would, but I would. I would see that I could increase my prices because I now have a new captive customer base. So anything you want to tell me about that, just to help me. I just...
that. To Senator West's point as well, that this would be putting a monopoly for a private enterprise, and he doesn't want to prescribe that. And I think similar to your point as well, Senator James, we do that in the law all the time. I'm an attorney. I'm required to have an IALTA account. The state of Maryland doesn't have a bank with an IALTA. I have to go to a private bank and do that. My dad is a licensed contractor. He has to maintain insurance. The state of Maryland doesn't have insurance. He has to go to the private industry and be bonded and insured to have his contractor's license. We have teachers in our law, and we say that teachers get opportunities for advancement if they take the national board certification, and we adopted that into our law. That is a private industry. We have social workers who take a national board certification, which one of our senators would like for them to not. But that is a private organization, and they have to pay fees to a private company. We have a number of things where the law prescribes that people have to take and use services from private industry, and it is prescriptive in our law. And if we can help tackle a historical bias that exists in the law through simply having new home sales input into a database, which industry professionals use every day, this seems like a very simple way to move forward with a historical problem. So I would hope that we would have the committee support.
That wasn't my question.
Oh, your question on
I'm sorry, I
Zillow,
wasn't into there.
Redfin?
I looked it up, and you can compel. It has to be a pretty significant interest. This has not been tested. I tend to think the courts would look at it as a proper public interest given. So I'm not asking that. I'm trying to just figure out the multiple listing, and I probably am misunderstanding it because I see that modernity, modern tech there's a proliferation of other, and there's going to be more and more and more, and things that we haven't thought of. So just briefly, the multiple listing is what, and how's it different from Zillow and Redfin?
Oh,
and blah, blah.
multiple listing
Yeah, I'm just trying to get
it's
it.
much more comprehensive. Multiple
Okay.
listing also has when a person has put a contract in for sale, it has the details of those contracts, it has details on the homes, the owners, the buyers, the bidders on contracts. It is not what's publicly available on a
It's like
Redfin
a
or a Zillow.
professional, almost like a
That's
professionally
correct.
used tool
That's
that
correct.
does multiple things, not just helping a consumer find a home,
That's
but all
correct.
the realtors talk to each other. For some reason, we only have one in the state, but.
That's correct.
That's right. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Senator Henson. This is an excellent defense of a bill that I didn't quite understand before we started. I really appreciate it. So just on the mechanics, so a new home that's not registered in MLS, presumably the sale would have to be registered in SDAT, and isn't MLS also scraping SDAT? Like when I go on Zillow, and I would see the sale of a new home on Zillow, which I presume is coming from SDAT. In other words, doesn't it get in through SDAT anyway?
Yes, that has such a delay in the recording of deeds and in what's happening there, that it often is ineffective when you're looking for comps. It doesn't have the same information as your MLS. SSTAT does have some things about the features of a property, but it's not the same level of specificity, and it's not the same timing that you get with the MLS service. That's why it's preferred in the industry. I know there is a bill to try to do some things with making sure that deeds are readily accessible and recorded faster, but right now, SSTAT just doesn't have the functionality to compare to what MLS could do to solve this problem.
On a delay, or it does? It's
I
just
don't
the-
know if
okay.
it feeds into MLS.
I don't think it does. I think with MLS, they're capturing sales. With SSTAT, they're capturing recordations, so it's later in the process from what I remember.
Okay.
Oh, I'm good. I don't know all the things about the bill, but I'm gonna learn some more from Vincent.
Senate Bill 811 passes 9-1. All right, we're now going to go on to Senate Bill 187. Josh.
So this bill was discussed by the committee on yesterday's voting session. An amendment was adopted. I think there's been a change to that amendment, so I think we should reconsider the vote by which the amendment passed.
Okay, we can do that. Is everyone okay reconsidering the vote by which that form amendment, all right? Now the bill is before you unamended. There's a new amendment in the packet.
Yeah, so it's number 653123/1. The only difference between what was adopted yesterday and this new amendment is on page 2 of 6 in the definition of eligible individual. So now with the new amendment, the definition is a woman who is within 18 months of the woman's anticipated release date and has pre-release status.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So are we narrowing the pool even more? So you have to be within 18 months and have pre-release status?
No, the bill initially came in, was it 18 months or 16 months?
As it initially came in, I don't think it made, and then there were changes made through the amendment.
That's right, so
Yeah.
it's what, 16 months or 18 months?
Well, the amendment that was adopted yesterday was within 18 months and had no Category 1A disciplinary
The
infractions.
problem is that you can be in a pre-release status for like up to, we heard up to 3 to 5 years, or there are some folks that are, so if you pass that bill as it was, or that amendment, and you don't add pre-release folks, then you're exempting out people who are currently in pre-release status, which makes no sense.
Right. But as I see this amendment, it's, you have to have both of them. It's an and, so you have to be pre-release and within 18 months.
Okay, it should be or.
It should be or, okay. So do we know the population of people that are within 18 months and has pre-release?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I'm sorry.
Populations is pre-release?
With the two of them?
80, I know the department has the exact number, but it was slightly over 80 at this moment.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, I have one more question. First, I want to thank the sponsor for all of her work and to echo what Senator Sidner said yesterday about the frustration over the multiple departments that have delayed this and cost the state a tremendous amount of money. So I don't want my questions to in any way say anything about the value of what the sponsor is trying to do here. My second question is, by saying within 18 months, and I understand the goal of what's trying to be done here, but are we then including women who are in maximum? So we have to have those who are in pre-release, which is a low security status, all the way through maximum security. So we're building a new multi-level prison. Is that right?
I'm sorry, go ahead. My reading is that if we went to or, it would pull in maximum security people, which under the accrediting agency, and we can ask Jason, would require walls and fences and barbed wires, which in my mind is essentially rebuilding a new
Right.
prison. I'll defer to.
Yeah, that's correct. So with the way that the amendment yesterday was drafted, it would have included more, and if you do and, it restricts it to individuals who are actually have the pre-release status and have that within 18 months. If you did an or, it would be pull in people who don't have pre-release status who are within 18 months.
Okay, it was my understanding that part of the goal of this was to allow women who were able to allow women in a specific status to be able to go out into the community, to get job opportunities, and to have more services. So I just want to make sure that we're still achieving that goal with this legislation. Just to repeat, Mr. Chair, my understanding of the bill as it came in and as it has always been is to provide a population of women a way to get out in the community, to get jobs, to facilitate their reentry, to get services that they're not currently getting. And I want to make sure that what we're looking at will still do that for them, understanding now that we're also including women who are in maximum.
Yes, so good.
I know there's several versions floating around, but in the reprint you have, it requires both that they be within 18 months and that they have pre-release. So everyone in the facility with the amendment that is currently before the committee with and, everyone in the facility would be in pre-release status. It would be the subset of pre-release that is within 18 months of release.
But it's not that you have to. So all the pre-release folks will be incorporated into this.
No, only those who are within 18 months of release.
Okay. I just want to see, if you're, right now, if you're in pre-release status, you have, privileges and access that the rest of the population doesn't, given your status. So to exempt out people who have a longer than 18-month long sentence or to go, who today have access to a higher degree of services and flexibility makes no sense to me. So I would say you have to have the entire pre-release population plus the other population of different security status within 18 months. That is plus, not or. Yeah, which means or.
But then you're pulling in
But then you're pulling in.
the max secure, and then they have to build a prison.
Thank you, sir. So with this 18 months, so we're talking about 48 women now. And the numbers are trending down, right? But the bill requires a bed count over 100. So by the time this thing is built, do we really know how many women will be eligible? So that's a, shouldn't we find out that prediction?
Maybe the representative of the corrections could step up to the podium. Yeah. Thank you. I think you can tell we're flailing around about this bill. So as I read the bill on paper at the moment, eligible individual is a woman who, A, is within 18 months of the woman's anticipated release date and has pre-release status. So how many women currently fall into that category? Those categories combined?
All right, so I haven't seen the amendments. I'm just going off of what's being said. Just want to make that clear. So based on what you're asking, in addition to the number I gave yesterday, which is 48, if you add in the current number of women in pre-release classification.
Let me read it again.
Okay.
Well, eligible individual means a woman who, 1, is within 18 months of the woman's anticipated release date.
Okay.
And 2, has pre-release status.
Okay. So the way that's being read sounds like it's one of two ways. You're either really narrowing it.
I think it's narrowing it.
It sounds like it's really, that's what it sounds to me.
You take the whole total population.
Right.
Of women who are within 18 months.
Which is 48.
Release.
Which is 48.
That's 48.
Yeah.
And then B, you narrow that to cover only those women who have pre-release status.
It's less, I can tell you that. It's a lot less.
A lot less than 48?
Because because you're only taking, out of those 48, you're only taking the women in pre-release classification, based on the way you're reading me the amendment.
While I'm reading you the bill, and then apparently we have another amendments proposed. I'll get to that in a minute.
Sure.
But I'm just dealing with what's on paper at the moment.
Which is what was yesterday?
What?
Which is what was yesterday?
Well,
I only have what was submitted yesterday.
Yeah. Just take what I'm reading to you.
Sure.
'Cause I'm reading what's in front of me.
Senator Love is right. Look, I mean, what's happening is that you are exempting out folks that are of maximum security status. So then you wouldn't run afoul of ACA compliance if you have these people housed, because you're cabining it to people that have pre-release status. But in doing so, you're leaving behind the folks that have pre-release status that have sentences that are longer than 18 months.
Right. So, but I'm just trying to get numbers. So if we're going to spend $100 million, it'd be nice to know how many people we're going to be housing in this facility.
Well, keep in mind the way the bill is structured with the bed count going up, that's going to be definitely more than 100 million. That's the 100 million currently for 64 beds. So you do have to keep that in mind. 108 million to be exact.
108 million is the current, but you say it's definitely going up.
108 million is the current price tag for 64 beds.
For 64 beds, but you say that the number of women that would currently be housed in the facility based on the language of this bill would be, quote, considerably less than 48 people?
If you add in pre-release classification that hasn't had a major Category 1A infraction in 3 years and is within 18 months, yes, that would be less than 48, because now you've just narrowed the scope.
You said considerably less. Are we talking about 24 people? What would be your best estimate based on your knowledge of the prison population? We're talking
less than 20, probably.
Less than 20 people?
Yeah.
And you're saying that the cost of this facility would be, at the moment, projected to be 108 million, but you say that's going to go up? At the moment,
For a 64 bed count facility, which is what at the moment, we are budgeted for $108 million. The price tag, not budgeted. The price tag is $108 million for 64 beds at the moment. So this bill, by calling for it to increase, let's see, let me go to the right section here. Thanks, I haven't gotten this one yet. Yes, this is the new reprint, I guess, that I haven't seen.
That would be helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, on page.
Thank you.
So if you go to page 3, lines 23 through 29, it's got to be 1.25 times the maximum number of women at MCIW back in 2024. So back then, the average was in the 70s, so it's got to be more, it's got to be 1.25 times that number.
So in around 100?
Over 100, yes.
So
if this bill were to pass, your bed count goes up over 100.
So you're designing a facility that's going to be able to hold 100 people, over 100 or more people, And at the moment, you're saying there would be fewer than 20 people eligible to be housed in the unit based on the current language.
Based on the language of the bill before you, yes.
All right, now, does this facility, as currently designed, is it designed to be maximum security?
No, it is not.
It's not. So the chair of the committee has suggested maybe we should change the language to permit, maybe the chair could volunteer the suggested alternate language that you're thinking of?
Josh, with the way that we've amended it now, with the infractions out and with the and, how many people?
So, yeah, I think Mr. Davison hasn't, I know he's working off an older copy of the bill that had the category 1A disciplinary infraction. So in the new reprint, that's been removed. So it's anyone within 18 months and pre-release, even if there's no restriction based on disciplinary infractions. So the number I have and, is 49 women are pre-release and due to be released in the next 18 months, with an additional 27 who would be excluded based on, having more than 18 months left on their sentence.
This right here. Okay. But it's and.
Yes. Okay.
Technical question, since we're trying to move around components of a definition. You've heard the new definition, 18 months and.
And,
All right,
yes.
so we've jettisoned some newer language from yesterday, which was not the original bill, about had no category 1A disciplinary infractions. I'm assuming that, in the last week, I'm assuming that was to try to address security issues. So since we got rid of has no category 1A disciplinary infractions, does our new definition mean that some of the eligible people could have a category 1A disciplinary infractions, just so I can understand that? Could you be within 18 months of release and also have that lower, as I understand it, one's orienting you in time and one is orienting you in level of security need, right? And then they intersect. So one is about within 18 months of your release, and you have that lower security status of pre-release. So is it technically possible that meeting those criteria, could you still also have a category 1A disciplinary infraction, which seemed to be important to us a couple days ago, but may not be today? And I just want to understand whether that's even possible, or is the new definition, by definition, somehow excluded 1A disciplinary infractions because of other aspects of the definition we changed the other day? That is such a compound question. But
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out.
Can you be, let me just ask you this. Can you be eligible for pre-release status and have had a 1A disciplinary infraction within a previous 3-year period? That's the question.
I don't know about the years. You have to be infraction-free to be eligible for pre-release.
And that might be contemporaneous, like not
Yeah,
the.
I don't know what the year, I can't
Can
remember
you
off
just,
the
at some point, get
Sure,
back
I can
to us
find
about
that.
I just would like to understand that you won't, nobody currently can have it because there are some, when we listed those.
Yeah, part of the.
Disciplinary infractions, some of them were quite
Sure.
something, right?
Yes.
But, so you want to make sure that at least currently, get back to me, please.
I can do that,
Or anybody
yeah.
else that's interested
Yeah.
on how far back. Thank you. That's all I need.
It's a motion for a favorable with the amendments. We could do a roll call.
This, okay, I get that. But we are actually asking questions of the department for an amendment that he doesn't have until about 5 minutes ago, the clean copy. The copy that we have doesn't have the amendment that we agreed on line 20 to not be there, which I understand will be there when we get to the floor. Like, honest, how is this? And I still go back to my question about when this whole thing is built, how many people will we actually be building for? And I don't think it's fair to ask him when we don't, so I'm not trying to be a pain, I'm just trying to understand policy and how we are in a committee, and we're actually off the same song sheet. I know it got changed, and anyhow.
Vice Chair Wildstreicher.
Okay, can you pass, can I get one more second just to check something? Come back to me, please.
Senator Sidnor.
Just so that I'm understanding, are we changing the definition of eligible individual? Because that's, or are we not?
It's the and stays there. The and is staying there.
Fewer than 20. Fewer than 40.
Yes.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he said
Oh, I didn't hear him, sorry. Senator West?
To explain my vote, $108 million to house fewer than 20 prisoners, a brand-new prison. I can't, the magnitude of the fiscal irresponsibility is hard to comprehend. It's an emphatic no.
Senator James?
Did you miss some news?
Oh, God, I don't know what I'm doing. Senator Muse?
Am I moving over?
Yeah.
Scoot up one more.
Am I now here? All right, thank you.
How y'all just overlook me like that?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Hey, I'm usually overlooked. Wait till you
I'm
get
tired.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Ooh.
The invisible man.
Senator James?
To explain my vote, I think the senator sponsor of this bill has pinpointed something very, very important in our incarceration system. Now that we do have women and women of color and an awful lot of women in the greater Baltimore area with unmet needs. But I'm just going to put on the record that people that watch this video, which is for posterity, this does not look professional. It does not look like we know what we're doing. It does not look like we understand this bill. I don't think that's necessary. I think we are better than that. And I don't like that this is in this posture. So, and in fact, I'm embarrassed that it's in this posture and that we are in this inability to fully understand. I don't ever want to vote for something I don't fully understand. And I think it's a lack of respect that we're asked to vote for bills that we don't fully understand. So sadly, I'm going to be no because I don't fully understand the bill. Technically, I support some aspects of it conceptually, very, very much so. But I do think we can do a better job, and none of us should be apologizing for this situation that we did not create. Thank you.
Senator Henson?
Yes.
Senator Love?
Yes, and to explain one thing, my understanding is it is 59 women, not 20. So, thank you.
Senator McKay?
So this is just bad policy. This is a bad bill. The intent of the bill is 100% correct. When we visited as a committee, the facility on Dorsey Road, we walked around and we understood all of the good things that we're doing. Now, when we were also there, there was these buildings that have been closed for years that the department actually needs to raise. I don't understand why we don't take a pause and put the money to raising those buildings that the state of Maryland will have to do eventually. They could just sit there forever and they'll eventually have to be taken down. And we can build this facility right next there and take into considerations all of the compassionate, the right things we should be doing to be giving these services to these ladies who are getting out, who are then going to be productive members of our society. And it can be, it's right there. It doesn't have to look like a jail corrections. The neighborhood that's around it is just, I just don't understand. And it doesn't matter if it's 29 or it's 59. We're going to spend this type of money for that, and the question still can't answer. We're going to build this 100-bed, and we don't know what it's going to be once this thing is going to be built. I don't understand. And I think in yesterday's video, we talked about how many kids this could actually feed, the amount of money that we're putting. You want to help families so that they don't make bad decisions, so men or women don't go to jail? Maybe we should be looking about feeding people to make sure that that is the #1 outcome, that then they can make good choices. So I'm a no. I'm sorry. I wanted to be a yes, and I appreciate the amendment that's not here, but will be here on the print on the floor. I want to vote for this bill, but I can't in this pasture. So I'm a nay. Apologize for rambling on.
Senator Charles,
Yes.
Vice Chair Waldstreicher,
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Yes. Senate Bill 187 passes 7-3. All right. Let's move on to Senate Bill 689.
Six, 8, 9. Oh.
Yeah, that's good. Senate Bill 689 establishes the task force to study post-release services and requirements. The Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services must provide staff for the task force. The task force must study each type of release from incarceration in the state, and for each type of release, post-release programs and requirements designed to prevent individuals' release from incarceration from recidivating. There is one amendment in your voting packet. Just grab this. It should be Amendment 183520. And the amendment actually strikes provisions of the bill as drafted and instead amends an existing task force, which is the Task Force on the Creation of a Division of Returning Citizens and Expanded Reentry Services. This task force is already in existence. It is currently slated to provide a report in October of 2026 and terminates June of 2027. What the amendment does is amends the duties of the task force, requires it to study programs and services to prevent recidivism by individuals in the state after release from incarceration. Further bumps out the reporting date. Instead of October, it would be December. And one final change I would mention is that it's not reflected in the reprint. I believe would still say in the title Breeze Law. Retain the parenthetical title that's in the law, or in the bill as it's drafted. The bill as it was drafted came in with a parenthetical title of Breeze Law. So that's the only, it's a non-substantive change to the title.
That is in reference to the young lady whose life was snuffed out.
Is everyone okay with the amendments? All right, I've been asked to move us forward, so I'll continue moving us forward. So the amendment has been seconded and adopted. The bill is now before us as amended. The bill has been moved favorably, and Senator Sidnor, discussion.
I'm looking through quickly to figure out who's serving on this. Which page this is on?
Large group people.
Pull that up for you, Senator.
I was going to put the sponsor on it. That's during the election.
Services.
While council is looking this up, I'll mention this is the first task force I ever sat on in 2011. I don't know if anyone remembers Delegate Jerron Levi, but she was on the task force assigned by Chairman Valerio. She then ran for county executive of Prince George's County, so she had to step off the task force. So I stepped, I think you were in that race as well. So I stepped in to fill in for Delegate Levi. And the result of the original task force was 4 years later was Justice Reinvestment Act.
Well, do you recall who you put on it? Because I'm not seeing it.
I wanted to put Office of Public Defender on there if if they're not on the original task force.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't see it in anything about who's on this in this.
937.
Because it's already.
Yeah.
I promised myself I would never serve on another one, and I haven't, thank God. Yeah, it was good. It was great and everything, but it's the election year.
Let me just make sure that I'm current with. 113. Right. So.
So I'm in.
So, Senator Sidnor, the task force consists of one from the Senate, one from the House, the Secretary of Public Safety and Correctional Services, or the Secretary's designee, Secretary of Housing and Community Development, or the Secretary's designee, the Secretary of Health, or the Secretary's designee, Secretary of Human Services, or designee, Secretary of Labor, or designee, Public Defender, or designee, the Attorney General, or designee, and member of the Division of Parole and Probation in DPSCS, who's designated by the Secretary, as well as the following members appointed by the Governor. One individual who was formerly incarcerated in the state, one individual who is the family member of a male individual who is currently incarcerated in the state, one individual who is a family member of a female individual who is currently incarcerated in the state, one representative of the Maryland State's Attorneys Association, one representative of the Lived Experience Advisory Committee, one representative of Maryland Legal Aid, one representative of Life After Release, one representative of the Maryland Reentry Resource Center, one representative of the Maryland Equitable Justice Collaborative, recommended by the co-chairs of the collaborative, 3 representatives from county workforce development programs, 2 representatives from county reentry organizations, and 2 representatives from a nonprofit organization focused on reentry of incarcerated individuals.
Do we leave anybody out, anywhere, ever?
There is a representative public defender.
And if we, as we vote, if I wouldn't mind making a sponsor amendment, just put me on the bill with the good senator.
All right, we're adding Senator Sednor. Would anyone else like to be added on? Okay, do we need a roll call? Oh, Senator West also on? West and Sednor. Do we need a roll call vote? Is everyone good? All right. I'm sorry, I lost my place here. Senate Bill 689 passes unanimously. We'll now go to Senator Henson's bill, Senate Bill 487, which is Josh.
Well, Senate Bill 487 authorizes the State Highway Administration to place and use speed monitoring systems on segments of highways identified as safety corridors. The administration may also authorize a local government to place and use such systems. The bill establishes requirements related to the use of the speed cameras that are substantially similar to existing requirements. SHA would adopt regulations establishing standards and procedures for the use of the systems. There is an amendment in your packet. It is number 333121/1. This amendment repeal or removes from the bill the authority of the MVA to suspend a vehicle's registration based on the owner not paying a citation issued under the bill. The MVA would retain the ability to refuse to re-register a vehicle based on non-payment of a citation.
Senator Love.
Mr. Chair, Josh, we had also talked about, where is that 15-day? Right, page 13. To be consistent with our other state laws, well, let me back up for a second. One of the things that the work group found this summer as we were looking at all our automated enforcement laws is that there's a lot of inconsistency. So we're really trying to ensure consistency as we move forward. So that's one of the reasons why that is the reason why that previous language was struck, and also why Josh and I talked about taking out this 15 calendar days and turning it into a warning for 90 days, because that's what we have in statute in other automated enforcement laws. We need to amend the amendment.
So we just need to strike 15 and go for 90?
No.
Okay.
Under the bill as drafted, there's a 15-day period after the installation of the systems where no citations can be issued. So if you go to page 13 of 20 of the reprint, we would be striking starting on line 12 with the last word there, citations, all the way down through the end of line 18. And so instead of saying for 15 days they may not issue any citations, the language would be, so with the lead in language, placed within the previous year, the State Highway Administration shall mail a warning notice instead of a citation for a violation recorded by the safety corridor speed monitoring system during the first 90 days that the safety corridor speed monitoring system is in operation. And that rule and that language is taken directly from the language regarding speed cameras on 83 and 695.
Questions about the amendment or the amendment to the amendment? No, that's okay. All right, so is everyone okay adopting the amendment with the change that council referenced, which comes from other statute?
Yes.
Okay, the amendment has been moved, seconded, and is adopted. The bill is now before us as amended. The bill has been moved and seconded, anyone need a roll call on Senate Bill 487? I'll note that the chair is back for voting purposes.
All right, 487 with the no amendments? Or? With the amendments. With the amendments passes 10-0 unanimously. All right, Shamari, Senate Bill 817.
Senate Bill 817 requires an appraiser to provide a preliminary notice to the requester of an appraisal and other interested parties when a preliminary determination indicates that the appraised value of a residential real property may fall below the contract price or, in the case of a refinance, the estimated value. Upon receiving a notice, the requester or interested parties may submit additional market data or comparable sales data to an appraiser before an appraisal is finalized for the purpose of supporting the contract price or estimate value. A final appraisal report must include an addendum that includes 1, the date of the original notification by the appraiser, 2, the other interested parties notified, if any, 3, a summary of the information received on the market data or comparable sales data, and 4, the impact, if any, the additional information had on the appraiser's determination of the estimated value.
Motions were favorable and seconded. Senator West has a question.
I'm looking at the testimony of the Maryland mortgage bankers. They say, while we appreciate the intent of the legislation to enhance transparency in the appraisal process, the bill creates serious conflicts with existing federal appraiser independent requirements, which govern lender and appraiser communications nationwide. And it goes on with some details. Has anybody taken a look to see to what extent this bill creates conflicts with existing federal requirements? Okay.
All right, so we're gonna, Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna move on to Senate Bill 984.
Senate Bill 984 is an emergency bill that prohibits, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the state or a unit of local government from approving the use of a building or structure as an immigration detention facility by a private entity unless the facility is expressly included in the applicable zoning authority. In addition, the bill prohibits a private entity from operating or occupying a building or structure as an immigration detention facility without a use and occupancy authorization or change in use and occupancy approval consistent with the bill's provisions. The Attorney General may bring a civil action to enforce the bill's provisions. The court may issue temporary, preliminary, or permanent injunctive relief. And a private entity that operates or attempts to operate an immigration detention facility in violation of the bill is subject to a civil penalty not exceeding $10,000 for each day the violation continues. There is an amendment in your packet. It's number 813023/1. So the amendment would, instead of banning immigration detention specifically if it's not zoned appropriately, with the amendment, all types, basically state and local government would be prohibited from approving the use or construction of a building as any type of detention facility, regardless of how the area is zoned. And additionally, the bill makes some changes to clarify the scope of the bill, essentially that it applies to any type of real property, and that it applies to the construction of these facilities in addition to the operation of the facilities.
Move the amendment. Second, all right, now the amendment's before you as, now the bill's before you as amended. Senator McKay.
So is this, I just call them balls and strike. In Washington County, there's one, is it going to affect that? Because that agreement is already, and it's already in the works and.
So, well, it would depend on what the federal government chooses to do. So I'm not sure we know at this point whether the federal government intends to operate themselves there or to contract that out to a private entity.
For the record, I do not know. I have not been contacted. I've not been whatever. But what I have seen and what I've heard is that I don't think it's going to be a private. But like I said, I've not been official or anything like that.
Right, so the bill only applies to detention facilities operated by private entities,
Okay. Thank you.
and it is retroactive, by the way.
It is retro.
Yes.
None exist in Maryland. All right, do we need, the amendment has been adopted. Motions for a favorable. Seconded. Senator West has a question.
Okay, I'm finally getting this distinction. So this bill only applies to the operation, construction or operation of detention facilities by private entities. It would not stop the federal government from purchasing property in Maryland, and if it's otherwise zoned properly, operating a detention facility, correct?
That's correct, with a little bit of nuance. If it, as we just had in this last exchange, if it's on government land or purchased by government and run by the government, then this bill doesn't touch that. But if it's operated by a private entity, then there's a prohibition.
How about, suppose it's on land that's leased by the federal government from a private owner of the land, how would this bill apply?
So yes, the bill would apply and prohibit the use or operation of that facility by the private entity that's contracted to run the detention facility.
Your hypo was government.
Wait a minute.
Least private, government-run, government-built, right? But least, is that your hypo?
The hypo is there's land that's owned by a private entity, and the private entity leases the land and the building on the land to the government, which then intends to operate a detention facility in this leased structure. Would this bill prevent that?
If it's the government doing the construction and the operation of the facility, no, it would not prevent that.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Waldstreicher.
Yes.
Senator Sidnor.
Yes.
Senator West.
Yes.
Senator Muse.
Yes.
Senator James.
Yes?
Senator Henson.
Yes.
Senator Love.
Yes.
Senator McKay.
I'm going to default to nay because I'm still confused. So,
Senator Charles.
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Yes.
Bill passes 9-1. That's a question.
Bill passes 9-1.
So Senator McKay, I'm not sure we got a definitive answer to the Washington County. As I understand Washington County, there's land is owned by a private entity. I don't know the name of the private entity in Washington County, and there's a structure on the land which it is leasing to the federal government, and the federal government will then take over the land and the structure on the land and convert the structure into a detention facility. And as I think the answer I got was, this bill would not stop that from happening. Who's going to operate it? The federal government. That it doesn't, okay.
Go ahead and say that. I don't care when this question gets answered, but I actually thought Maryland prohibited already the private detention centers of any stripe.
We didn't have a strict prohibition. We passed something, I don't know, 4 years ago, that required extensive permitting and zoning and public notice and comment procedures, such that no one has actually built a private detention facility in Maryland yet, but there was no strict prohibition.
You're sure of that, even going back quite a ways that there, because as far as I know, historically, I'm not talking about the 1800s, but I'm talking about in the modern era.
No.
Of, let's say 19-something forward. And I thought we did have laws that restricted, I can look that up, but you're saying we didn't have something that you're aware of, some, statute that we were aware of, and even though we recently started to regulate in this area, that would been aligned with our desire probably not to have private detention centers. They have a lot of problems across the country, yeah. But now we're going to make it explicit. All right, thank you.
My understanding is there's nothing in the code that explicitly prohibits it, but there's also nothing in the code that kind of sets up a system for allowing it. So whether you consider it prohibited or just, not provided for, it hasn't happened in Maryland in some time at least. Yeah.
Just was wondering if we or others had spoken to this issue in the past. Well, but anyway, thank you.
No.
Senate Bill 877 authorizes for 3 years the use of stop sign monitoring systems on state and local highways located in a school zone in the Mount Washington neighborhood in the 41st Legislative District to record violations of state law requiring obedience to stop signs. All of the existing statutory provisions that apply for other stop sign monitoring systems used in the state would generally apply to these systems. There is an amendment in your packet. It's number 983620/1. So this expands it to include the entire 41st Legislative District rather than just the Mount Washington neighborhood.
I know, I don't know. We can adopt the amendment. Is everyone okay? We have a delegation letter, right? All right. Okay. We have a delegation letter. They do. All right, we'll run it and see what happens. So motions for favorable with the amendment. We'll do a roll call.
Vice Chair Wildstreicher.
Yes.
Senator Sidnor.
No.
Senator James.
Which bill is this again?
Senate Bill 877.
Local bill to cabin to 2 legislative districts.
Right, yes. It's a local bill. Yes, sir. Yes.
Senator Henson.
Yes.
Senator Love.
Yes.
Senator McKay.
Local bill, yes.
Consistent.
Senator Charles.
Yes.
Chairman Smith. Oh, hold on. Senator West. Senate
Yes.
Bill 877.
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Yes.
7-1.
All right, we're going to go on to Senate Bill 10.
Bill, please?
8 to 1.
Senate,
For you now?
It's right next to you.
I don't like the way the city of voices.
Fair enough. Okay.
not for that. Senate Bill 10 establishes a 90-day timeframe for the State Highway Administration to approve or deny an application or return the application as complete when a county applies to obtain the administration's approval to use a speed monitoring system on a state highway at a location within a municipal corporation. If the administration does not approve, deny, or return an application during that 90-day period, the application is deemed approved. There is an amendment in your packet. It's number 893125/1. So it extends the 90-day timeframe to 120 days, and it caps the amount of applications that a local jurisdiction can make to the administration at 10 applications for any 30-day period.
Let's adopt the amendment. SHA, anything to say? Now the bill's before you as amended. Motions for a favorable with the amendment. Seconded. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative?
Yes.
All right. Senate bill with the amendment passes unanimously. Senate Bill 10 with the amendment passes unanimously. Actually, Senator, let's do this before we roll out. Let's get
465, where's Jamie?
Senator James. Let's make sure we do that. Senator James.
Got about 30 questions for
465.
Hold on just a second. Oh, thank you. Senate Bill 465 expands a limited exception to the hearsay rule in a criminal case applicable in felony cases when a statement is offered against a party who, through wrongdoing, has caused the unavailability of the witness who made the statement to include cases which a defendant is charged with assault in the second degree. There are no amendments in your voting packet.
There's been a motion for a favorable. It's been seconded. There's open for discussion.
And I apologize, I'm looking for.
No, take your time.
The bill again. Are there amendments on this bill? There are none? Okay. The bill would make exceptions to the hearsay rules where out-of-court statements could be used to prove the truth, correct? Okay, and it would make those exceptions for what sorts of cases? Assault in the second degree? Counsel, can you help us understand the broad variety of assault in the second degree?
So assault in the second degree, I talked about this a couple of times this week, so it's kind of fresh, but assault can range from, it's basically harmful or offensive physical contact. You have first-degree assault, which is a felony, which would be covered by the existing rule. Those are things that are life-threatening injury or serious physical injury, which generally includes some sort of permanent impairment or maiming or disfigurement, loss of a limb or use of a limb. Below that, you have second-degree assault. Let me back up. First-degree assault would also involve choking or use of a firearm. Second-degree assault those are the things that are short of that. That is harmful or offensive physical contact. You can also accomplish a second-degree assault through frightening. So if you place a person in apprehension that a physical assault or battery is imminent, and they have the apparent ability to carry that out, that would also be a second-degree assault. That, again, could range from something, severe like a punching to something moderate where you have an offensive physical contact.
Thank you. And then the existing exceptions to the hearsay rule, how many are there?
Pull that up, Senator. I can pull the rule up for you.
They
I want to say
include
it's
things like
in the 20s.
They include things like an excited utterance, a present sense impression, statement against interest. There are lots of ways already without this rule that you can already get in out-of-court statements into court already without expanding it further to just blanket allow them in for any statement. But there are lots of ways if you want to get in good hearsay evidence already to do that. Is that right?
Let me pull up the exact number of exceptions for you, Senator.
Do you remember that song from law school?
Right. Where'd you go to law school?
That's how I learned it.
I didn't get a song.
I never got that song.
No.
I'll send it to you.
Please.
No, they didn't. I don't know.
So, Senator, there's a couple of rules that include exceptions here, but I'll just read from 5803B. That's a list of 24 exceptions. So present sense impression, excited utterance, then existing mental, emotional, or physical condition, statements for purposes of medical diagnosis or treatment, recorded recollection, records of regularly conducted business activity, absence of entry in records kept in accordance with another exception, public records and reports, records of vital statistics, absence of public record or entry, records of religious organizations, marriage, baptismal, or similar certificates, family records, records of documents affecting an interest in property, statements and documents affecting an interest in property, statements and ancient documents, market reports, learned treatises, reputation concerning personal or family history, reputation concerning boundaries or general history, reputation as to character, judgment as to personal, family, or general history or boundaries, and then you've got your catch-all exception, which committee discussed a little bit earlier this week as well.
So that sounds like a lot of opportunities to bring in out-of-court statements. So the useful purpose of this bill is everything outside of those very thoughtful boundaries that you just described. So what's outside of those boundaries? Are we talking like maybe somebody's social media pages or, other things that we want to start to bring into court to prove the truth of the matter asserted for an offense that has a maximum penalty of 10 years incarceration?
I'd have to think about that, Senator.
Okay. It just sounds like we already have so many opportunities to bring in hearsay evidence, Mr. Chair, that to have a blanket exemption for this offense, which has a broad range of activity that could qualify for a charge under this offense, it just seems, I don't know. Thank you.
In every state in the nation except Maryland, not only is witness intimidation a crime, it is a crime in Maryland, an extremely serious one. But all 50 states and the Supreme Court have recognized that when you engage in witness intimidation, that is what this bill is about. It's not everything and all things. It's not social media posts in the most vaguest of terms. It is going after a crime called witness intimidation, and you can read about it. It's in our criminal code. Maryland is the only state in the nation that does not allow for a defendant it does not allow the prosecutors to allow statements in court after someone has been too afraid to come to court. And in every other state, it doesn't matter if it's a felony or a misdemeanor, as the Supreme Court says, you're not going to benefit from committing a crime by perverting and corrupting our judicial system and our trials. This is true for witnesses, this is true for jurors, but we're focusing on witnesses right now. So we are such an extreme, inexplicable, unjustifiable outlier that no matter what arguments are made about this particular bill to try to align it with the rest of the country and the Supreme Court, there isn't, in my mind, any way to explain why we would allow for witness intimidation, a serious crime, and allow a defendant to benefit from that. Because imagine that a defendant, he commits witness intimidation. Prosecution, maybe they can charge him, maybe they can prosecute him. But you know what's not going to happen? Without this remedy, we'll just use a domestic violence. It's not necessarily a domestic violence situation. The victim of that being too afraid to come to court means that that victim will never see even an opportunity for justice, right? Because that person is too afraid to come to court and pursue the case. And usually those cases are intimate, and usually there aren't other people in there. And by the way, amending the statute and allowing us to add the only exception we have to witness intimidation ban doesn't guarantee anything, but it does align us with the values, morality, historical understanding of why no defendant should benefit from wrongful conduct, and a prosecutor at least should be given a fair and open opportunity to make that case to a judge. So for those reasons, and I've had the bill here for 3 years, the House has passed it already, which I deeply appreciate for them, and they've vetted it as well. I hope that people do remember what I've said and know the history. I'm glad to share more with you, and I hope you vote favorably.
I think this senator's comments were strong enough. I don't need to speak. Thanks.
Just a quick question. Counsel, if someone says to a witness, if you go to court, you know, you're going to regret it and I'm going to beat the crap out of you, would that be a hearsay exception?
Well,
under the current hearsay?
So the statement itself of?
Yeah.
So you're offering it to prove the truth. I don't know that definitionally it's hearsay. That just sounds like.
So, but it would be under this bill.
I only hear circumstances you were given. You were threatening someone with physical violence. To me, that does fall squarely under Title IX, subject 3 on witness intimidation.
So it
you know,
would
you
fall
can do
under
other
this
ways. You
bill.
can coerce people other ways. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, good. Thank you.
I just quickly wanted to say, if this is about witness intimidation, then we should be clearly stating that this is about witness intimidation and not about the broad category that's in this bill. So I know I have to go. If you can count me as a no.
Well, I didn't call it a broad category. It's drafted exactly the way the rest of the law that doesn't allow witness intimidation to be allowed in this state either. So I didn't do anything other than put it exactly where all the other crimes that you can get witness intimidation involved in. That's all you do. So it's just 3 little words in a statute, so.
Vice Chair Waldstreicher.
Just real quick, I share Senator Henson's and Senator Sidnor's concerns, and I think they're legitimate, but I'm mollified by the fact that 49 other states have already done this without those concerns coming to fruition, so I'm a yes.
Senator West.
Yes.
Senator James.
Yes.
Good luck.
Senator Henson.
No.
Senator Love.
Yes.
Senator McKay.
Yes.
Senator Charles.
No.
Chairman Smith.
Yes.
Whoa, a car crash. Ah, that guy's out of control.
Here's the exception.
What kind of idiot is driving that pacer?
All right, see you all on the floor. That's the end of voting for this morning.